all of a sudden, you see something different than what you were seeing before. Whether you call it a light bulb, whether you call it, a moment of truth, whatever it may be, it happens a few times in your life. You see something important that, why in the hell didn't I see this in the first place? Well, I started buying stocks when I was 11. I've been reading every book in the library on it. I loved it. My dad, it was his business, and I'd get to go down to his office and I'd read the books down there, and I saved the money, and finally, by the time I was 11, I could buy a stock, and I could tell you, at that time, I went to New York Stock Exchange when I was 9. My dad took us to New York, each kid to New York once, and he took me. I went to New York Stock Exchange, and I was in awe of it. I could tell you how the specialist system worked and the odd lot arrangements, and I could tell you history of finance and all of these things. And then I got very interested in technical analysis and charted stocks, and then all kinds of crazy things, hours and hours and hours, and saved money to buy other stocks and tried shorting, and I just did everything. And then when I was either 19 or 20, and I can't remember exactly where I did it or something, I picked up a book. It wasn't a textbook at school, but it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I looked at this book, and I saw one paragraph, and it told me I'd been doing everything wrong. I just had the whole approach wrong. I thought I was in the business of trying to pick stocks that would go up. And in one paragraph, I saw that was totally foolish, and I left. I brought something that it's really interesting. Let's put up illusion 1. Now, if you look at that, some people will see two faces, some people will see a base, and some people will look a long time and only see two faces. But the mind flips from one side to another. They call it ambiguous illusions or something of the sort. There's other things that talk about aha moments, or in the old comic strips with Popeye, Wimpy would have a little balloon over his head and the light bulb would go on. There's this point where all of a sudden you see something you haven't seen. Well, it took me, I had an illusion that I was looking at two faces. Let's go to the one labeled 2. If you're looking at it from one side, it looks like a rabbit. And if you look the other way, it looks like you're looking at a duck. And, the mind is a very funny place. I think people call it an apperceptive mass, when you have all kinds of things going on in your mind. And they go on for years, and they sit there and get lost. And then all of a sudden, you see something different than what you were seeing before. Now, it took me in stocks, which I was intensely interested in. I had a decent IQ, and I was reading and thinking, and it was important to me to make some money on it. I had every motivation in the world. And then I read a paragraph, actually, in chapter 8, I think it was, of The Intelligent Investor. And it told me that I wasn't looking at the duck, I was looking, now it was the rabbit, whatever it may be. Whether you call it a light bulb, whether you call it, a moment of truth, whatever it may be. And that happened to me in Lincoln. I mean, it changed my life. If I hadn't read that book, I don't know how long I would have gone on looking for head and shoulders formations and 200-day moving averages and the odd-lot ratios and a zillion things. And I love that kind of stuff, except it was the wrong stuff I was looking at. And I've had that happen, and Charlie's had it happen, I'm sure. It happens a few times in your life. And all of a sudden, you see something important that, why in the hell didn't I see this in the first place? Maybe it's a week ago, maybe it's a year ago, maybe it's 5 years ago, maybe it's learning how to get along with people. Whether actually it's better to be kind or not. They're just learning how. If you want the world to love you, what you have to do, or what it's, when you see it, but you didn't see it for 10 years before. And I don't know whether Charlie's got some thoughts on that or not, but that's happened in a few situations in business where I've looked at a company for a decade, and then there's something that just all gets rearranged in your mind, and you can say, well, why didn't I see this 5 years ago? Or I've had it happen a few times, obviously, and everybody here has, just in different areas of their lives. And you think, how could I have been so stupid? Well, that's what Charlie's, when he was in the law practice, he had a partner, Roy Tolles, and every smart guy that would get in trouble, usually it was guys, and usually it was with women, and they'd come into the office and they'd look down-faced and everything, and they'd say it seemed like a good idea at the time, I mean, and their lives unraveled, in many cases. So there is that apperceptive mass that's sitting in there inside somehow, and every now and then it produces some insight. It's better actually if it produces insight into your behavior than whether it produces insight to make money. I mean, and some people never get it, and they wonder why whether their kids hate them or whether there's nobody in the world that would give a damn whether they live or die. In fact, they prefer they die because then they've been courting them for their art collection or whatever it may be. It's just, Charlie would say, just write your obituary and reverse engineer it. Not a crazy idea. Charlie, I don't know, what do you know about apperceptive masses, which optical illusions?
I know that that's the way the brain works, and that it's easy to get it wrong. And part of the trick is to get so you correct your own mistakes. And we've done a lot of that. It's so easy to overdo a good idea. That's what's going on now. You have a lot of good ideas that are being grossly overdone. But look what happened to Robinhood, from its peak to its trough. Wasn't that pretty obvious that something like that was going to happen? Robinhood, when it came out and it went public and it got alerted to everybody and all the short-term gambling and big commissions and hidden kickbacks and so on and so on. It was disgusting.
And it said so last year, and they got mad at you, and they sold a bunch of their stock, and they got the money. And
yeah, but now it's unraveling. God is getting just.